The time for testing is almost over. The final countdown to 2024 is almost up. Coming up, catch me if you can. Reigning champion Pecco Bagnaia sends an emphatic message to the rest. He wants the hat-trick. Closing the gap, Marc Marquez has flown under the radar for much of winter testing, but don't expect him to stay there for very long. And get ready for a glimpse into the future, and the future looks like that. Pedro Acosta couldn't have asked for much more from his debut season build-up. Testing is almost over. Next, we race. Yes, this is after the flag, the final after the flag of pre-season testing before the serious stuff starts, and the points are on offer. The 2024 MotoGP season gets underway in just 18 nights with the first Tito sprint of 2024. The times have been rapid, to put it mildly, so far this evening. 10 riders in Lusail tonight under the all-time lap record. That's 10 and counting, because that could still change over the course of the next 28 minutes or so before the checkered flag comes out. Plenty of riders still pounding in the laps. We've had fast lap times, we've had crashes, we've had red flags in the last half an hour or so. Elliott York's had a big one. Jack Miller has just crashed as we've gone on the air. He is okay though, but the riders are leaving no stone unturned to get themselves in the best possible shape for one of the biggest and most exciting MotoGP seasons any of us have ever seen. My name's Louis Suddaby. Alongside me is Elliott York as we begin to chew the fat over pre-season testing, which is very nearly over, and start to look ahead to the 2024 MotoGP season. And we say every season, Elliott, it's more competitive than ever, it's more exciting than ever. One thing's for sure, MotoGP in 2024 is faster than ever.
Certainly is. The time set by especially Pecco Bagnaia, 150.9 is absolutely ridiculous.
8/10 under the lap record set last year.
Yeah, best part of a second in the lap record. I mean, we were watching the timing screens pretty much all afternoon. And then when Pecco came out and did that, we were like, right, okay, that's a serious marker laid down. But Aprilia right up there, 3 of them up there with Elliott York, Maverick Vinales, and Raul Fernandez especially. Really impressed with Raul Fernandez in Qatar, despite his injury troubles over in Sepang. Didn't get much running over there, and he's come to Qatar and really set the world alight in terms of his lap times. But yeah, Ducati looking strong, Aprilia looking strong, but there's a couple of riders, namely Brad Binder, who haven't really shown what they're capable of just yet. So interesting times. I mean, the lap times are just stupidly quick, as I said.
Yes, we'll go into that in more detail as we go through the show. We have seen sprint simulations, we've seen race simulations, particularly as Elliott mentions from Brad Binder, and his race simulation was pretty competitive all told. So we'll discuss all of that as we go through the show. Simon Crafar and Jack Gorst, of course, will be joining us throughout the show, and Simon is ready to join us now. And Simon, we're going to be running the rule over all 5 factories over the course of the next 90 minutes. And let's start with Ducati, of course, the reigning champions. Is it fair to say they've got pretty much everything out of winter testing that they'd have wanted?
I would say it's gone pretty much perfect from their point of view. I had a catch up with Davide Tardozzi, and it wasn't really necessary because you could see, and I've been reporting that they're right on target. Everything they've tested, it's worked. You know, might have taken a little bit of working out, you know, electronic settings or whatever, the new engine, but they've got the new engine, the new aero, and the new exhaust all on there, and they're out there, and Pecco did that. It was the whole paddock went, wow, because it was a good half a second, 6/10 faster than anyone at the time, and a lot of people have got their head down and tried to close that gap. I've got to say, both the GP23s last year's have had really good feedback from riders that are on them. Everyone reporting last night that they've made good headway and they're comfortable on them. And then the GP24s, they're all happy, and they're even saying a little bit more rear grip, where everyone else is saying the opposite, you know. So Ducati are looking really dangerous. As I said, I had a word to Davide Tardozzi, and he said, yes, everything's going very good, very well, but we're keeping our feet on the floor because we've got to go away. There's some car racing going on here. I think it's world endurance racing. And we come back, track conditions will be totally different, and we've got to start from scratch again. But He's right. He's a very experienced man. He was winning World Superbike races before I even left my home country, and he's won multiple World Championships as a team manager, and he is right. But they're in an awesome position. Just before I let you go, I've just been having a treat watching the two Marquez brothers having a good run together, a long run, and then Pedro Acosta got in the middle and chased Mark, and everyone here is smiling watching the 8-time world champion being pursued closely by maybe the future one.
So you just touched upon it there, the 2023 Ducati riders currently looking like they're improving each time they go out. Who out of them have you been most impressed by, especially here in Qatar? Bezzecchi obviously making ground, he had a difficult Sepang test. Out of the four riders, who's impressed you most?
I have to say DG, Fabio Di Giannantonio, both at Sepang and here, has flicked the quickest, you know, been the comfortable, found a comfortable setting and made good lap times, probably the quickest, you know. So he's probably the most impressive because he did it the quickest, but all of them are fast, you know, all of them. And the thing is about testing is every year we go, oh, we think we've got a good idea, and then we come to the first race and it's different. So all I would say is all of them look good. I know that sounds boring, but it's true.
Interestingly, Simon, just as you mentioned, the 2023 Spec Ducatis, Marc Marquez has just gone down a couple of corners away from you, actually. He's gone down at turn number 4, but he is okay. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll catch up with you later on in the show.
I am the best.
We are lost.
We are not friends anymore.
Mi girano I coglioni. Solo puede quedar uno 2023.
22 of the world's best and fastest riders, all with one big goal: to take the #1 from reigning world champion Pecco Bagnaia.
My dream is to continue winning title for many years.
He has the best bike.
The main rival is the #1.
He has the #1. I would like to be one of the greatest of the history.
20 rounds, 40 races, and a new thrilling era with the arrival of the Tissot Sprints. Bagnaia's gone down. Marco Bezzecchi is the MotoGP winner.
Fine è uno spettacolo. Come può essere tanta mala suerte?
I was not enjoying my life.
Tutto il dia sta ya ogni volta del capo.
The riders have a big ego.
Possiamo mettere ancora nervoso al socio.
Need to be more focused on his job.
This championship is very long, so wait.
Possiamo mettere presión.
What a way to bounce back.
A mí no me intimida.
Oh, they touched.
If I'm not safe in first row, where I have to start?
Se va a quedar dentro por mucho.
You never know what can happen.
Sta regalando punti a tutti, via, prendeteli tutti.
Can you believe it? There is another massive plot twist.
There can be only one. It's available on YouTube right now and on MotoGP.com. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you do ahead of the new season for a look at the 2023 MotoGP season like never before. We're going to look ahead then to 2024, Elliott, and we're going to start with the rider who we just mentioned there before showing you that trailer, and that's Marc Marquez, who literally, as we were speaking to Simon there, went down at turn number 4. But all in all, when we look at the Qatar test as a whole, Marc Marquez is currently in 4th place. Obviously, that is a single lap time. Of course, there's a lot more behind that lap time. But given where he was in Sepang, I'd say Marc Marquez has made the kind of progress we were expecting.
Yeah, he said in Sepang, didn't he, that he wasn't really pushing for a lap time, and that's what he was struggling with most. On the race pace, he felt good. He felt near the top guys. Okay, not quite with Pecco and Jorge, for example, but overall, the race pace for him was like, yeah, I'm there. I need to make a couple of adjustments, of course, still adapting from the Honda. We saw, obviously, the behind-the-scenes clip with him and Pecco, Mark admitting that he's still riding it like a Honda, and Pecco saying you're still riding it like a Honda. But for him to go out in Qatar and go just under 4 tenths off Pecco's ridiculous lap time. Enea's, of course, up there too, a 10th off Pecco. That's Mark really for the first time, I feel, showing his true cards over one lap pace. Now, obviously, he's got work to do to try and match the top two, especially on a Ducati. But like I say, that was the first indication that Mark, okay, I'm feeling confident to push for the time, and he's right up there in 4th place. So come qualifying on Saturday in Qatar, he's going to be right up there with the best of them.
Yeah, those were pictures from earlier on today when he had a technical problem. That is not the first time we've said that in pre-season testing. On the first day of Sepang, you might recall, Marc Marquez had a couple of technical problems. He pretty much lost all of the first day in Malaysia to technical gremlins, the kind of gremlins that might well stop you in testing, but if that comes up in a race, you would just carry on and ride through it. So it's not exactly been a straightforward winter program for Marc Marquez, but he has got an abundance of experience. I guess if you're looking at Marc Marquez and what he can achieve this season, what might dictate his goals for this season aren't so much what he can achieve, it's the fact that the GP24 has just flown out of the box and is quick from the get-go. Mark would have expected the early races on the GP23 to be a real opportunity. Is that opportunity reduced somewhat?
You could say that, I guess, yeah. I mean, it's not what Simon said there. Look, all 4 of the Ducati riders who are on GP23s, Mark included, look very comfortable straight away. Mark obviously had more work to do coming from a Honda. The other guys, okay, have admitted that the jump from the 2022 spec to the 23 spec is bigger than they expected. But there's still work to do, and obviously seeing the likes of Enea, Pecco and Jorge so quick straight away. See there in the box, Mark, with the scuff leathers. These are live pictures from Lusail. He looks all okay, just a standard sort of front end tuck, we can assume.
Yeah, 10 falls for right-hander, so yeah, it looks exactly like the kind of front ender that Marquez has had there. He's having a word there with his world champion winning crew chief from 2020 with Tranmere, Frankie Carcetti, and you saw what kind of effect Frankie had on Fabio Di Giannantonio's 2023 season. So he'll be hoping that he can help Marc Marquez on his ascent towards the top, and who knows, potentially a 9th World Championship. Well, one person will certainly be hoping that Marc Marquez can challenge for victories and even a title this season is his team manager, Michele Messini. We caught it with him on the eve of the final day.
Yeah, so far quite good, quite happy. We start in a positive way. With both riders, the feeling is better compared the last test here in Sepang. With Mark, continue to work, continue to understand every run where the bike. In Qatar, the feeling starting much better than the feeling that he had in Sepang. So for sure we can work more with his sensation on the bike. For sure, the important is to find the right base for beginning the new season.
So they're reasonably optimistic, aren't they, down at Gracidi, with an all Marquez pairing in the team? You can hardly blame them. We've spoken about Mark. In terms of his teammate, Alex Marquez, of course, a lot of the focus within that Gresini team will go to the other side of the box. But if we're speaking specifically about Alex Marquez, the goal has got to be wins this year, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he came close in Sepang, obviously won a couple of sprints in Silverstone and Sepang. Showed last year that the potential that he's got on that bike is very high. Okay, of course, it's a different bike, like I said before, a much more different bike than they expected. But Alex Marquez has been keeping his cards close to his chest. He's seemed super relaxed in pre-season, going about his riding in a methodical way, not rushing into things. Judging from the time sheets, he's 9/10 off, potentially gone for a time attack and not just quite hooked it up altogether. But yeah, Alex Marquez for sure needs to be fighting for victories and podiums on a regular basis. He's capable of doing it. We saw that last year. He had injury problems, of course, when he crashed in India. That sort of hampered his final part of the season last year when he was really coming on strong. But yeah, Alex Marquez will be confident of fighting for podiums and victories. It's just how much of the step the 24 Ducati has made, because that's going to make their job a lot harder.
It'll be interesting to have a look at the race simulations later on once the session has concluded to see how that race simulation involving the Marquez teammates went. Although, as Simon told us there, Pedro Acosta was doing his level best to disrupt it. Well, two proven winners at Pertamina Enduro VR46. We're certainly not going to miss them on track with their new fluorescent livery. But how far towards the front will Fabio Di Giannantonio and Marco Bezzecchi be? I guess the conversation has changed somewhat, hasn't it, at this test around VR46, because the word from Sepang was that Fabio Di Giannantonio had started the year on fire, Marco Bezzecchi struggling by comparison. Bezzecchi certainly looks to have closed the gap, if not overturned it completely here.
Yeah, I mean, we were sort of worried for Marco coming into this test because in Sepang he was really, really slow. We didn't expect that. But after hearing what he said yesterday, he's made a step. His feelings on the bike are so much more comfortable than they were over in Sepang. And looking at the timesheets, he's right there with Didier. As Simon was saying, Didier Antonio has been super impressive. Hit the ground running on the GP23. If you didn't hear his interview yesterday with us, he was basically explaining when he was on the podium a couple of times at the end of last year, him and Pecco were talking about the 23 bike. And Pecco said to Didier, look, you need to adapt your riding style a lot more because your strengths are probably what the weaknesses are on the GP23. But Didier has come out and said, in fact, the bike is enhancing my strengths, which, as we've seen on the timesheets, is hit the ground running really, really strong from Didier. And he's really looked happy all the way through, not heard him complain once. I think he's got to find a little bit on the front feeling, he was saying yesterday. But for Bezzecchi, looking at Didier sort of coming into the team, the new kid on the block in VR46 and straight away going quicker than him would have been a bit of a shock for Bezzecchi. Obviously, Bezzecchi has title aspirations of his own, going close last year. So good to hear that Bezzecchi has made a step in Qatar. He really needed to, obviously, because if he was still that far down at the end of day 2 today, then we would have started to really worry. But both of them looking comfortable and looking good. So good times ahead, it looks like, for VR46.
Yeah, 2 proven winners, as I mentioned. Didier Antonio, who challenged full victory and, of course, claimed one of them in each of the last 2 races of last year. We know he goes well at the Lusail International Circuit, so perhaps he's a dark horse for victory on the opening night. Marco Bezzecchi will hope he is too. And as mentioned, when this test began, there were very different noises being made by the 2 respective VR46 teammates.
The departure of Luca Marini and the arrival of Fabio Di Giannantonio heralded a new era for the Pertamina Enduro VR46 racing team, one in which Marco Bezzecchi would take a leading role. However, in pre-season testing, it's the newcomer Didier claiming the spotlight, with strong performances in both Sepang and Qatar.
Last year, when I was doing the podiums that I was doing, that I was chatting with Pecco about the differences between the bikes, he was saying that with the 2023 bike, I had to change a little bit my riding style, because my riding style would be a bit worse for this bike. But the truth is that it just improved my good points. So I'm just riding as I was riding last year, and the bike allows me to push harder, I am faster, and I have more feeling from the bike. So honestly, is everything better from my side.
We know that Fabio here was, the last year was very, very fast. He liked a lot this track. Bezzecchi in Malaysia, we wasn't so fast, but we had also some crashes in Malaysia. That one is not very nice, because in the end you go one step back and it's not very good for the rider.
I was struggling to stop the bike, not in a straight braking, but more in angle. Compared the old bike that I had, this bike has a different style. So I had to change a bit my riding, and because of this I needed a bit more time. But also we made some changes on the bike that really helped me a lot. This was the biggest step.
Marco started working very, very good. At the moment he started getting a very good feeling with the bike. We have to work a lot with the electronic with him, because it's completely different from last year. In 10 days, 15 days we will be here for the first race. So it's really important to try to get a very good setup for the bike, try to be ready for the first race. And also it's really important to try also to get the setup for the riders.
Results aren't everything in testing, as riders and teams look to find the right balance for the season to come. But performances on the track suggest that with his new team, Di Giannantonio looks to continue where he left off last season.
And there's every reason to suspect he is going to pick up where he left off last season. And those flyaways at the end of last year were career-changing. There's no mistake about that for Fabio Di Giannantonio. He's a rider who looked like he was partway out the exit door in MotoGP. He's now very much a central figure nowadays. Rather than a rider who's trying to prove he belongs in the elite, Fabio Di Giannantonio now, I get the impression, feels he genuinely does belong there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't until Sunday in Valencia where we knew where Di Giannantonio was going to end up in 2024, and the way he ended that season was truly spectacular. None of us really expected it. First half of 2023, it looked like, obviously with the Mark news swirling around and limited rides on the grid available, Didier was out. But credit to Didier, he pulled it out the bag in the final half of the season, and I think the biggest questions for everyone was can Digio come into VR46 and hit the ground running and sort of string a full season together? The early signs are that he can absolutely do that. And judging from his sort of interviews when he's saying he's super fast on the used tyres in race pace trim, that bodes well. I mean, he's obviously got decent one-lap pace as well, not quite with the top guys judging from these times at the minute, but maybe not a true reflection of where they are. But race pace, he was super, super happy with it. So he's going to be a contender in Qatar and most likely throughout the season as well.
Yeah, we'll chat Pramac and particular Jorge Martin a little bit later on when we discuss who our expected title contenders are for this year. Those title contenders certainly will include the factory Ducati team, Pecco Bagnaia and Enea Bastianini, as you can see, still first and second, despite a late time attack a few moments ago by Brad Binder, which has moved him up into the top 10. The first time we've really seen a true time attack from him. It is the factory Ducatis who lead the way, and unlike last year, Elliott, when we look at the factory Ducati team, are we looking at two title contenders rather than just one?
I think so, yeah. I think obviously Enea at the start of last season, new into the factory team, didn't quite gel with the bike straight away. And then, of course, he got injured in the first round in Portimao and had a pretty luckless run throughout the year until Sepang, where he won. But hearing from Davide Tardozzi, the team manager in Sepang, saying, look, this is the 2022 Enea that we've got on our hands now, where he was super, super impressive on the Gresini Ducati, winning, of course, here in Qatar. So, yeah, we've definitely got two contenders for the title. Ducati will expect both of those riders. Of course, Pecco is the reigning world champion. Goes without saying that he'll be contending for the crown. But Enea, of course, today just a 10th off Pecco in the time attack, the blistering pace that they've both set. So it's great news and great to see Enea back up there at the sharp end, because we missed him up there last year. We thought last year we were going to get a nice spicy battle between the two riders in reds. I think this year we're going to get it, and mixed with Martin as well and a whole host of other riders. It's going to be pretty special watching the two factory Ducati boys going at it.
Some up-to-date info, by the way, from Simon Crafar, who's on the ground in Qatar. Brad Binder is back out there on another new tyre, and he's set a personal best first split, so keep an eye on the left-hand side of your screens. He might just shoot up the order very shortly. As far as Enea Bastianini is concerned then, as we look at his teammate Pecco Bagnaia, Bastianini, of course, losing so much time at the start of last year to the point that he was never really in a position to either help or hinder Pecco Bagnaia, really. He was too busy trying to get himself fully fit. But it will be fascinating, won't it, if Bastianini is a genuine title threat to Bagnaia, to see how Ducati manage that within the box. Because one thing we haven't really touched upon through the winter testing shows is, of course, Paolo Ciabatti, who was so central, he was, of course, the Ducati Corsa sporting director, is no longer going to be overseeing this project. He's have now, of course, moved to focus more predominantly on their new motocross program. So if it does get a little bit spicy and a little bit political within that Ducati box, they're going to have a hard time managing that.
Yeah, potentially. I think they know what both riders are about. They had sort of an experience with it last year with Jorge and Pecco going at it. Okay, not in the same team, but riding pretty much the same bike, of course, in the same factory. So I think they've got experience in trying to deal with that sort of animosity that might build up throughout the season. It's going to be interesting to see how that does play out. Davide Tardozzi said in Sepang that they've been working really well together, hence the progression of the bike is where it is at. They both agree on what items have been working in testing. They're working well together now. Whether that continues throughout the season or not remains to be seen. But, I mean, they're definitely not the best of friends, of course, but they work closely together. I am interested, though, to see if Enea can start the season how we're expecting him to, coming out the blocks, all guns blazing, how that relationship unfolds. And like I say, it is going to be interesting, both riders in the same box, how Ducati do deal with that, because there's going to be no team orders, is there? They've already shown that they don't do team orders in MotoGP in the Ducati boxes. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting battle for sure.
And very quickly before we join Jack in pit lane, Pecco Bagnaia, reigning world champion, two-time world champion. Are we looking at the best version of Pecco Bagnaia we've ever seen in MotoGP?
I think the simple answer is yes. Two-time world champion. The way he won it last year against Jorge Martin, who you could argue was the strongest rider, the fastest rider, especially over one lap and in the sprints, and the way Pecco managed the Sunday races was sublime, and the way he started pre-season, he's the rider to beat.
Yeah, we'll come back to Pecco later on. As I say, when we close the show, we'll have a look at the likely title contenders for this year. It might be a tall order for those title contenders to include Honda. They're, of course, looking to try and bounce back off the basement of MotoGP last season after a very tough 2023, which cost them Marc Marquez. Jack Gorst is down in pit lane outside the Honda box to give us an update on what's going on there. Progress feels to be made, Jack, although their progress was halted a little bit today through no fault of their own. There's a bit of a sickness bug in the camp.
Yeah, there was, unfortunately. It actually started even yesterday. Luca Marini was supposedly a little bit ill, under the weather yesterday. Did a pretty good job, so if he keep that under wraps. He didn't look ill when he came in for interview at the end of the day, but we did find out today that he was ill yesterday. And then Joan Mir today, unfortunately, was ill too. He only did 6 laps. He had a technical issue this morning, which cut him short anyway, but then he took an extra long break just to recover, get some energy in, and save his energy for now when he's done his time attacks. And fair play to Joan, because he's got out and done a 52.4, which is 1.1 seconds quicker than what he went here last year in qualifying in Q1. Of course, we know the Honda is massively better, but also fair play to Joan for actually going out there and being able to put that lap in. So Honda then, there's definitely progress. There's a step forward there for sure. We knew that back in Valencia test already. We saw the comments there from Johann Zarco about just how much quicker the new bike was compared to the 23, but they've seemed to have kept that step, but they still need a step forward again. They're a step behind everyone else at the moment. You would say that only really them and Yamaha are kind of there on a level playing field, and you could argue that maybe Honda look even better shape than Yamaha. Maybe not. It's a bit of a difficult one to tell. Where have they made progress? Well, we know that from this test, obviously the engine is much better. Taka Nakagami was really complimentary of it with just how much smoother the new engine was, you know, showing the progress there with the throttle connection, making it better with that rear grip. But still, the massive Achilles heel of the RC213V is that rear grip. Too much spinning coming out of the corner, it's compromising them all the way down the straight, and it's compromising them in rear stability on the exit as well. One thing that actually helped with the new aero they have, the big double stacked rear wing that they tried yesterday and then kept running for the majority of today too, was that it helped with a lot more rear contact. So that was keeping the rear wheel on the ground a lot more in the braking area, which Taka said was a real big improvement. And actually the rear grip in that area is the best around the circuit in terms of whether it's better in the middle of the corner and then on the exit as well. The other thing as well, we know that Luca Marini was asking for more downforce too. Obviously, we know that they got it at the rear, but also those larger wings at the front helped as well, which was a real good sign of improvement for them too. But still, the big things remain that rear grip. The power is pretty good, it's there, but they still need to make it a little bit smoother and more manageable. Where will Honda be when we go racing? I mean, are they going to fight for the top 10? You would say that the riders they have can certainly make that happen. But with so many Ducatis going fast, we've seen the Aprilias now come to the fore towards the end of the test as well. It's going to be a real tough task for Honda to break into that top 10.
Well, we don't want to, for 1 second, Jack, suggest that you're a jinx, but while you've been talking about Honda, 2 of them have gone down, out on track. Joan Mir and Johann Zarco have both crashed out on the circuit, so the testing hasn't exactly ended on a high, but there are reasons for them to be optimistic. We'll be back with you shortly, Jack, to discuss Yamaha, but for now, thank you very much. Of course, from Honda's point of view, it's a long road back, and they're on that road. Of course, whether they can close the gap as the season goes on, particularly aided by those concessions, we will have to wait and see. Person looking to lead the fight back there, along with Joan Mir and Luca Marini, is the team manager Alberto Puig. What kind of mood is he in as testing draws to a close?
Unfortunately, our 2 riders had been ill. Yesterday, Luca had a virus in the stomach, and today Joan, so he's not on track so much. So, for this matter, we are not. We could not do so many tests. But yeah, I mean, the package is not ready for them. Not because they could not try today so much, but we are still looking for, let's say, the best compromise or setting for the Grand Prix. And this is the current status and situation. We know where we improved and we know where we have to improve, and yeah, trying to speed up as much as we can the things that we have to improve to see when we can receive them for the starting of the championship. We understand the bike is a package, you know, so it's not only aero what we have to work on. We have to to fix also other things of the bike. You cannot only fix one thing nowadays with these bikes. So it's a very important part of the bikes nowadays, it's true, but we think we also can improve in some other areas. So that's what we are looking for.
You have unlimited testing this season. Do you have any set plans already for testing?
We are trying to understand what is the best options, and we have kind of a plan, but not a close plan yet. But yeah, the program will be interesting and helpful, sure, for the development of the bike during this 24.
So from a Honda point of view, they're on their way forwards, although with the rate of development, particularly with Ducati at the front, it is going to be, as mentioned, a long road back for them. But with concessions, they may well get there later in the year. Yamaha will be looking to do the same. Like Honda, they are benefiting from concessions, and Jack Gorst is ready for us, or will be in just a moment, down in the Yamaha box. Fabio Quartararo and Alex Rins, on paper, one of the strongest, if not the strongest, rider pairing on the grid. Jack Gorst is there for us. In terms of what kind of machinery Quartararo and Rins are going to have at their disposal this season, it feels like progress has been made, but sometimes it feels, Jack, as if the mask has slipped from Fabio Quartararo. Particularly speaking to you yesterday when asked if they have made the breakthrough in terms of a time attack, he didn't exactly give a positive answer, did he?
No, he didn't. And then actually Maio Meregali, when he came for interview earlier today, backed that up actually and said that they haven't made that step forward in the time attack that they need. I mean, Fabio has done a 51.9 on time sheet the last time I checked, which is a good half a second faster than he went in Q1 here last year. But then again, we believe the track is about 3 or 4 tenths quicker anyway with the level of grip that is out there. So realistically, what is the improvement? Maybe 2 tenths, and when you've got Honda making, possibly a 7 or 8 tenth step forward, Yamaha's 2 tenths starts to look a little bit measly. Of course, we know that Yamaha, their race pace is going to be better proportions than their qualifying pace, let's say. We know that the race pace is pretty good. They're pretty good on used tyres later in the race. So once we come to the first GP, I think we'll get a better reflection of what Yamaha can do in race trim. But we know that the starting on the front 2 rows of the grid is so important. And I think Fabio only started on the front 2 rows of the grid 3 or 4 times last season. So certainly the Achilles heel there is still prominent. We know that, if you can see behind me, actually, there's just a mechanic in the way at the minute. But that longer exhaust that is on the back of that Yamaha, that's an interesting sign to see them today, that on all 4 bikes they've stuck with it. They've put it on there all day and ran with it. Usually we see Yamaha maybe test a different exhaust or something different anyway, and then they kind of go back to what they know fairly quickly. They don't really seem to test it extensively initially anyway. So it's good to see that probably hints that it is better. And what Fabio commented yesterday was that was looking at smoothing out their power delivery. We know that that's so important for their time attack. Having a smooth power delivery on the exit of the corner, to be able to use that soft rear tyre and not just spin itself in knots and cause problems. So certainly if they can work on that, then, well, obviously they are trying to work on that, then that will be the key to seeing Yamaha get back up towards the front. Really, with Yamaha, you've got to say that, again, it's like Honda. If they're going to break into that top 10, there's just a couple of things that they need to do. But those things, unfortunately, are problems that they've had for a few seasons now.
Just looking at Rins, Jack, how would you assess his pre-season so far, coming towards the end of it, adaptation from Honda to Yamaha after a really difficult season? He sounded positive in his interviews. You've been chatting to him. How would you assess his overall feeling?
Yeah, tricky. I think he's feeling okay. I don't think he's absolutely over the moon. I mean, we can tell that he's not absolutely over the moon as the guys go out now for their practice start session. But Alex made a step forward today in terms of outright pace, which was good to see. We know that his long runs haven't been looking amazing, but certainly, I mean, as you say, he's stepping onto a Yamaha for the first time, only a handful of days on the bike still. So hopefully we see Alex improve that as we do go on. To be honest, I would say that Alex's test maybe hasn't gone as good as he would like it to. But we do hope that once we get into race trim, we can see some more improvement there from Alex, because at the minute he's still not on the level of Quartararo, but I don't think anyone expected him to be right on that level of Fabio by the time of end of pre-season testing.
Yeah, It's a fair point, Jack. I guess the expectations have to be kept under control for Alex Rins, certainly early on. Thanks very much for joining us. Jack will be grabbing all the reaction as we go through the second half of this show. So thanks for joining us. We'll be rejoining Simon to talk KTM very shortly, but testing has now completed. The next time you'll see motorbikes in anger, apart from the practice start you're about to witness, will be for the first practice session of the new season in Qatar a couple of weeks on Friday, and this is how the final test of 2024 panned out. It was Pecco Bagnaia who ended up quickest, and as mentioned, the lap times were extraordinarily fast. The top 10 all within the all-time lap record. In fact, that became 11 later on with Brad Binder's late improvement. Bagnaia, the only rider ever to set a 150 around the Lusail circuit. A 150.9 put him a 10 clear of his teammate Enea Bastianini. Alex Espargaro in touch with the Ducatis in third. Marc Marquez lifting himself up to fourth. Raul Fernandez on the 2023 spec Aprilia was up in fifth from Maverick Vinales, Jorge Martin and Fabio Di Giannantonio, last year's Lusail winner. Brad Binder, as mentioned, lifted himself up into ninth late on. He was just ahead of Marco Bezzecchi and Jack Miller. Miguel Oliveira, the best we've seen from him so far this winter, in 12th, saving his best for last. Alex Marquez 13th, then the first of the Yamahas, Fabio Quartararo 14th from Pedro Costa and Alex Rins. The four Hondas line astern: John Zarco, Taka Nakagami, Joan Mir and Luca Marini 17th to 20th, around 1.2 to 1.7 off the pace depending on who you look at. Augusto Fernandez, the last of our regular riders. That's kind of been the story through much of winter testing. Of course, no Frankie Morbidelli here, and he had Cal Crutchlow and Michele Pirro behind him. Lorenzo Savadori we also saw fleetingly today as Aprilia got him out for some extra mileage. And we can continue to talk Yamaha while we've got Fabio Quartararo on screen getting ready for his practice start. I guess Yamaha are a symbol of just how much MotoGP has moved on. Go back 3 or 4 months, Fabio Quartararo would have bitten your arm off for a 151.9 around Lusail. He's done one tonight and he's a second off the pace. Pretty brutal, isn't it? I mean, the question coming into pre-season surrounding Honda and Yamaha was how much of the gap they could bridge. And undoubtedly, if they made step forwards, as Jack was saying, Honda have improved pretty much by nearly a second, especially over one lap pace. Yamaha have also taken a step forward, but the other manufacturers have taken 2-3 more steps forwards in advance. As Fabio said all along, the long run pace is not what he's too worried about. He's within a few tenths of the fastest guys, and Fabio, being the rider he is, can extract those couple of extra tenths out of the bike when he needs to. But if you can't qualify well in this day and age in MotoGP, then as we saw last year with Fabio, you're going to be absolutely nowhere. So it's a real worry that we've got to the final day of pre-season testing. It's going to be interesting to see if they've made any progress today, but judging from the timesheets, not much progress has been made in terms of trying to extract the full rear grip from that soft rear tyre. A second off of Fabio, 1.2 seconds off for Alex Rins. Worrying at this stage for Yamaha, I think, over one lap pace, and it's really the same position they were in last year despite making a step. Yeah, his average qualifying position last year, Fabio Quartararo, was 12th. He was 14th tonight in Lusail, as we look at the beautiful American livery of Miguel Oliveira and the Trackhouse team, who we'll perhaps discuss a little bit later on as they get ready for their first MotoGP season. I guess for Fabio Quartararo, he might be hoping that the Yamaha is a little bit better in combat, in wheel-to-wheel, elbow-to-elbow battles this year, because so often Fabio Quartararo found himself in the pack and couldn't really do anything with that performance. He was getting left, particularly on acceleration out of corners. They were trying to work on that. It feels as if they have made progress on that, particularly with the new exhaust. They're trying to smoothen that power delivery so that it's not too aggressive and he doesn't lose too much time when he gets on the throttle. But you do wonder, from Fabio Quartararo's point of view, he was particularly blunt, wasn't he, when we asked him if he'd made that progress on time attack mode. His loyalty to Yamaha, who he's been with either in factory or satellite teams since he was introduced to MotoGP 5 years ago, that loyalty is going to be tested, isn't it? It really is. He has been positive throughout this pre-season. His comments have mostly been good, praising Yamaha's change of strategy and their aggression in changing their strategy from years gone by. But if Fabio Quartararo can't qualify on the Yamaha, he's not going to win races, and he's not going to be on the podium much either. And he's had last year of suffering big time on that Yamaha, went close to the title of the course
in 2022, but the second half of that season, he was no match for Pecco Bagnaia. 91 points to deficit for Pecco. Went on to win. Yeah, it's going to be a big topic of conversation, I feel. I'm sure you agree, Lewis.
Yeah.
Fabio Quartararo's future. A few riders, of course, will be in the mix as well when talking about future. Jorge Martin, one of them. But yes, he's already come out and said, look, I'm speaking to other factories. My management, at least, is speaking to other factories. As you would at this stage, his contract, of course, runs out this year. So this is going to be a big topic to follow. If Quartararo and Yamaha can't get some good results, at least podiums, top fives, or signs of real progress in the first 4 or 5 races of the season, then Fabio's going to be probably saying to Yamaha, look, I've tried and I've done my best, but maybe it's time for me to look for pastures new.
We'll chat about his new teammate Alex Rins in just a moment, but looking at the way this test has completed for Yamaha, is it too much of a question? Is it too tabloid to say that Yamaha are in crisis? Well, let's find out from the man in charge, team manager Maio Merigali.
Here we could really prove what we saw in Malaysia. All the improvements we have done there, we basically saw here with a slightly improvement in the top speed, but the gap compared to the competitor are still important. Honestly, I hoped that we could be closer, and honestly, I did not expect that the competitors were able to make this step.
One of the main concerns is the qualifying.
Yeah.
Do you think you've made a step in those 2 tests in Malaysia and here in Qatar?
Actually, and unfortunately, no, because the pace is not bad. For sure, it's not in the top 3, but anyway, it's not bad. But especially here, more than in Sepang, the gap during the time attack is still important. And yeah, it's really the point where we should focus all the energy we have, because many times we said that to start from the front gives you a lot of benefits. So it's really an area that we have to really improve.
So not the quantum leap forward they were hoping for, but they're certainly not giving up. Quickly on Alex Rins then, of course, Fabio Quartararo's new team. As I mentioned a moment ago, you could argue that pound for pound, that is the strongest rider pairing on the grid, even if Alex Rins is coming into this season on the back of the biggest injury of his career. Jack, I think, made a very good point in pit lane in terms of the expectations we can have for Alex Rins. Is a reasonable expectation, certainly early on for Alex Rins, to be, if he sees Fabio Quartararo ahead of him when he crosses the finish line at the end of a race, he's done a good job.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Jack makes a good point. He very rarely makes a good point, but on this occasion he did. I'm only joking, of course. Yeah, Rins, we can't expect too much from Rins. The season he had last year was an absolute disaster. A horror injury picked up in Mugello, a double fracture of his leg. We all know how it unfolded in the latter half of the season. So I think if Rins can just keep tabs with Fabio, both in qualifying, the sprint and the race, and just be within sort of 5 seconds, maybe even 10 seconds over a long race distance, not lose too much ground lap by lap, Rins would have done a good job. And then I think by sort of the half-season mark, we'll hopefully start to see what Rins and Yamaha are capable of.
Yeah, Jack Gorst did hear that, by the way. He'll be giving you some pelters on WhatsApp later on this evening. We can head straight to the Lusail International Circuit, though, now and bring you some live reaction. Let's cross over there now, because the rider who led the chasing pack today behind the factory Ducatis, behind Pecco Bagnaia and Elliott Bastianini, was Aleix Espargaro. Third for him, 3/10 off the pace of Bagnaia. Let's get a word with Aleix now. He's over in Lusail.
Sorry.
Hi, Aleix. Pre-season done here in Qatar. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Happy because next one's going to be racing. I can't wait to race. Testing is good, but what we want the ride is to race, so I can't wait. I'm happy overall with the debut of the 24 spec bike, and since Malaysia felt good, so I'm happy and feeling ready for race one.
Ducati, of course, look very strong. Do you think that for Qatar you can close that gap to them, or they look on another level?
Not on another level, but yeah, they are one step more more competitive than us. On time attack, I think if we want to fight with them, we need more power. That's for sure. But in terms of pace, I crashed on my lap 7 or 8 on race simulation, but I've been very, very strong. So we can be closer on race day, but you want to do a good qualifying, and we are missing some power because with the extra grip we cannot really use it.
Yeah, regarding qualifying, how are you going to try to, make another step when the Qatar GP, right?
I'll try everything really these days to be closer on one single lap because I know it's very, very important. But I felt that I was in the limit of the bike. I was able on the race sprint simulation to do a couple of laps in 51, but then I was not really able to go a lot faster with the soft tire. So with the medium tire, I'm very, very happy, very, very fast. But with the soft tire, we have to improve. Yeah.
And from what you've seen in preseason, if you have to pick an early 2024 favorite, who would it be?
The world champion. This is why he have the number 1 in his fairing, double-time world champion, and it looks strong. It looks strong since the beginning. So it's going to be the man to beat.
Thank you very much, Ali.
So there you have it. There's Aleix Espargaro's analysis on Aprilia's competitiveness and the general state of play in MotoGP. We'll revisit Aprilia later on. We're going to now turn our attentions to KTM. Of course, we're waiting to see whether they are truly going to lead the chasing pack behind Ducati this season. I have to say, Elliott, so far we've had to look very, very closely and very detailed into the lap times to try and find those signs of KTM performance, but I think there were signs of that today.
Yeah, I think throughout pre-season they've been impressive. Look, in Sepang, we know how many parts they bring to Sepang, how much testing they've got to go through. Jack Miller's especially alluded to that. But both riders in the factory team in KTM have been happy with the progress. Binder, finding some small adjustments. Miller was happy yesterday with the aero package, especially in the windy conditions that we had yesterday. So KTM have been impressive, and just at the end, Binder cropping into the top 10 is a good sign of progress. They're going to want more, of course. We touched on Yamaha's qualifying pace. Binder especially will be wanting more than to be 6/10 off. But it's good pre-season. I'm sure Simon Crafar will agree. He was explaining yesterday as well that KTM look like the closest challengers at the minute to Ducati in terms of race trim. Aprilia have shown just there that they're potentially the closest over qualifying pace. So it's going to be interesting to see out of the two of those factories who are the closest to Ducati. But KTM are looking good, yeah.
Well, Simon Crafar is ready to join us once again to talk KTM and what sort of shape they're in ahead of the new season. Simon, looking at the lap times earlier on, Brad Binder did put in a race simulation where he put in 21 laps, and they were all within around a 52.8 to a 53.3. So his race rhythm was pretty competitive. Do you think KTM are perhaps a little bit stronger than perhaps the lap times on the face of it suggest?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. I have really believed in KTM because they have brought so much. The riders have confirmed it's better. And when I say so much, a couple of specs of engines. I asked Brad last night about the new engine, and he said it's great. I can't feel anything better. Anything different. It just gets quicker to the rev limiter. The thing's faster. They've worked on electronics. They've got exhaust we saw last year, but they've all confirmed that. And they've got aero that they've confirmed's better. But I still haven't seen what I was expecting, I really expected, like last year, that when it all came together, that we would see the results of all this. And I'll be honest, I'm a little bit nervous for them that it hasn't turned up yet. It is the last minute, but... I really don't know. I don't think we've seen what I expected that KTM would get close to Ducati. I mean, Aprilia in the one-off lap is clearly the only one really close, Brad, in his defence, did a heap of a big long run, I think it was meant to be 22, and I think it ran out of fuel, but it was a long run. And then he came in after that and put 2 softs in just to have a go, and he must have been tired after 2 days, then the long run, So what I'm saying is there's a chance still that we'll see what I'm talking about at the first race, what I'm expecting, like we did last year. I think both these factory KTM riders are racers. They add that dig something deeper out at a race event. I think everyone will agree with that. Their team do. And so there's a good chance of seeing it. But I'm a little nervous for them that we haven't seen it on paper already.
Simon, switching over to Gas quickly. It's sort of been a tale of contrasting pre-seasons for Augusto and Pedro. Try not to get too excited about Pedro Acosta. I know you're doing the same. Just talk to us about those contrasting comments that we've seen and heard from Augusto and Pedro. Augusto starting the season on the back foot, would you say, and Pedro doing what some of us would have expected him to and just hit the ground running?
Yeah, it's too late. The cat's out of the bag. We're all excited about Pedro. You know, I was trying to play it down, and he's just amazed everyone. You know, at both tests, Sepang and here. You know, the lack of mistakes, the brilliant feedback to his team, how he looks on the bike, the lap times. He's just doing everything. It's quite amazing. And then he's out there with the experienced riders, looking like he's meant to be there, you know, like fighting with them out on track. It's just magic. And like you said, contrasting, because Augusto is a good rider, a very good rider. I mean, he showed he deserved the job, you know, to keep it. And he started the year, like you said, really on the back foot, like a really rough test in Sepang. And then here, yesterday he did have a bit of bad luck. Engine went in the first half of the day, so he's had to spend the second half of the day with one bike, not being able to, you know, swap, which saved time for mechanics to work on one while he rode the other, and vice versa. So he lost time, and then he wrote that bike off at the end of the day before the time attack. So we never really knew what he could do. And then today, it still hasn't. I mean, mechanics had a busy night last night. He was the first guy on track to check his bikes that had been repaired, and it still hasn't come together for him. So I just hope that it doesn't continue like this, and you know, have a really tough year for him, because like I said, I think he's a very good rider, great kid, really talented. He's hungry. He deserves better than he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, you're certainly not going to find any disagreement from us on that one. We certainly hope Augusto Fernandez can pick things up. Thanks very much then for joining us for the moment, Simon. We'll be back with you at the end of the show to talk Aprilia and look ahead to what should be a thrilling 2024 season. And we'll pick up first with KTM before we move on to the Gas factory team, who you can see just behind us, because as far as Jack Miller and Brad Binder are concerned, much like Simon, I guess we were hoping that today would be the day we saw that explosive step from KTM, but history has shown us that perhaps KTM don't necessarily show their hand in testing. They perhaps save their best for when the points are up for grabs.
Exactly that, and compare that to where they were this time last year. KTM were miles off the pace, not sounding confident at all, and then look what Brad Binder was able to do, especially in 2023. Didn't quite fight for the title, but came so close to winning on a couple of occasions. On a Sunday, was regularly the main Ducati threat on Sundays and especially Saturdays as well. So, yeah, a little bit disappointed to not see them sort of penetrating the top 5 in terms of one-lap pace. But judging from their comments, they seem happy enough. Binder was saying yesterday it's just about stringing everything together, putting all the pieces together that they've tested and try and iron out their package into race trim and Grand Prix trim ahead of the round one in a couple of weeks' time. So I don't think they should be panicking yet. They're not going to be panicking, of course. They'll see the times and think, okay, there's a little bit of work to do here. Interesting to hear what they say, of course, tonight as well. Maybe it will have changed from yesterday, but judging from the comments so far, they're keeping their feet grounded. They know what they need to do, and they're in a good position.
Well, straight to Lusail then to hear from a rider who will certainly feel that the 2024 season could well lead to the world title. Jorge Martin is ready to speak to us. Let's hear from him now.
Jorge, we're here finally at the end of testing, and the next thing we do is go racing. But end of testing, how do you feel within yourself and the package of the bike? How ready are you?
Well, yesterday I felt good. Today I feel good till the last tire we put. I think, you know, we are struggling with some chattering from the rear. I think it's my first time in MotoGP so far with this problem. So we are trying to solve it. For the moment, we have no solution. So struggling quite a bit in this side. I cannot ride smoothly and how I want. So just waiting for the team to solve it and then to be able to ride faster.
We saw some pretty fast lap times from the factory duo, Pecco and Enea. Do those lap times concern you at all that we've seen them put in today?
I'm focused on myself and let's try to do it in the race.
And going forward, Jorge, into 2024 at the moment, who do you think is favourite?
Yeah, well, Pecco is the favourite. He won the last two seasons, so I feel like he will be the man to beat.
Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you.
A man of few words, but you took a general air of confidence there around Jorge Martin. You'd be hard-pressed to bet against him when the first Heathrow sprint gets underway in a couple of weeks' time. Returning to KTM then, and of course they took a couple of sprint wins early last year with Brad Binder. The victory, of course, he took in Argentina from 15th on the grid was one of the rides of the season. And so often last year it felt like Brad Binder was working near miracles to put them in victory contention, but ultimately never claimed an actual win for them. From KTM's point of view, of course, they'll, as all manufacturers will want to, they'll want to fight for the championship, but surely nothing but race wins on Sundays will do for them this year.
Exactly. They had podium success in abundance last year with Binder. Miller got a Sunday podium in Jerez. I mean, the way Valencia played out, they should have got a double podium, at least in Valencia. They know that. Binder obviously made a couple of mistakes. Miller crashed out of the race leads. If they'd have won there, that would have really sort of sparked them into life coming into winter and pre-season in 2024. Yeah, it's all about race wins. They're here to win. They've piled in the money and the research and the development, the amount of stuff they've bring. They've got the riders to do it. Binder and Miller have proven to be race winners in MotoGP. Binder not won a race since 2021, which is pretty hard to believe. So it's only a matter of time you think that they're going to win, but with Ducati making the steps they've made, it's becoming increasingly difficult to beat the best, which is Pecco, Jorge Martin, maybe Enea Bastianini, the 23 Ducati. We know how good that is. So it's going to be interesting to see how it does play out, but wins are essential, especially in the first few races, because if they don't, then questions are going to be asked. The pressure within maybe the company is going to be starting to put on the riders. You'd like to think not, but KTM are here to win, and they want to win soon.
And from Jack Miller's point of view, it felt last year as if the gap between Jack Miller at his best and Jack Miller at his worst was just too big last year. When he wasn't on the pace, he was outside of the top 10. He had quite a few scoreless weekends last year. Jack Miller's certainly got to try and make sure that he closes the gap to Brad Binder on a more consistent basis this year.
Yeah, a couple of sprint podiums and that podium in Jerez. Started the season really strong. We were, I think, all of us impressed with how Miller was doing. I'm sure you agree with
was sensational.
Yeah, exactly. Testing was average coming from the Ducati to KTM. It was always going to be a slow start, but then to do what he did in Portimao, be right up there with the fastest guys, we're like, okay, Miller's here to play. We know what Miller's capable of. As I said, he's a race winner on the Ducati on multiple occasions. But yeah, he'll be disappointed with how the season played out mostly through the mid-season. He sort of went missing, got a bit lost on the bike, but then towards the end of the year, he was able to regather some momentum and end the season pretty strong. So, big season for Miller. We know contracts are up. Binder's already signed up. Pedro Acosta in Gas, the way he started pre-season, KTM are obviously going to be looking at Pedro and thinking, how can we promote him into the factory team ASAP? The pressure certainly is on Miller. Francesco Guidotti has mentioned that to us in pre-season already. Miller knows it, but I think Miller likes the pressure. Miller likes being the underdog, sort of like his mate Cal Crutchlow loves having the underdog tag, and that's what makes Miller tick. So a big season for Miller, big season for KTM. Like I say, it's going to be interesting to see how they start the season. Pre-season has been okay. Now it's about putting it into race trim.
Big season for Yamaha too, and for Fabio Quartararo. He wasn't exactly the most positive at the end of day 2. How is he feeling at the end of day 3? Let's hear from him now with Jack.
Yeah, exactly that. Fabio, end of day 3 here and end of pre-season testing at all. We saw yesterday that you commented about the qualifying pace. I presume today from the comments of your team manager, Mayo, that it's still the same. It's not quite the breakthrough you need.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to see the 51, but we're still 1 second far from the top. And we still have a lot of work to do, and hopefully we can find a solution during the season. And yeah, we are still far away, but we keep the team positive.
On the positive side of things, we know that Yamaha usually has pretty good race pace. Have you made a step forward with that during testing?
Not really. I was behind Bastianini on the sprint simulation, and he pulled away quite a lot. And I think that we have to make the step in some areas, but I mean we have to to think positive, try to find a solution in this way, and hopefully during the next few months we can find a step forward.
Obviously, now done a handful of days alongside your new teammate Alex Rins. What's the comparison like between your feedback and his feedback? Are you quite similar riders?
Yeah, I think we have similar feedbacks, and we talk a little bit. The thing is, we can find the limit quite easily on our bike. He's only 2/10, I think, behind me, and of course, you know, it's something that we have to improve together. And I think that, you know, like I said, and I will repeat again, that we have to make a lot of laps. I think Yamaha need to understand where is exactly that thing.
And lastly, Fabio, going into the first race of the year, who do you think is the favourite at the moment?
Pecco.
Thank you, Fabio.
Thank you.
Yep, why use one word when why use a few words when one will do? Pecco Bagnaia then is Fabio's favourite, and he's been quite a popular answer so far. Fabio there trying to very much toe the party line and keep his chin up. We'll see if that continues through the season if Yamaha don't make progress. So, as we were talking about a moment ago, we were discussing KTM and perhaps the target that's on Jack Miller's back this season. The rider perhaps taking aim at that target is Pedro Acosta, the Moto2 world champion, the rookie in MotoGP, but don't expect him to look like a rookie very often this season. As we heard from Simon Crafar earlier on, the mask is now slipping for all of us. We're expecting Pedro Acosta to be box office in 2024. Let's get excited then. What kind of expectations are realistic for Pedro this year?
Oh, what a question. I mean, if Simon's getting excited, then that's it. We're all getting excited. Expectations for Pedro, I mean, from a personal point of view, podium in the first few races may be too much to ask for, but from what I've seen and what we've all seen, I think race win potentially this season. Podiums for sure, I think, this season, maybe after the midpoint. It's so competitive in MotoGP, it's difficult to pin that on a rookie. But Pedro is not just any rookie. He's coming in with 2 titles in his last 3 seasons. I mean, just the way he's riding the bike. This is Augusto Fernandez we're looking at on track, his teammate. And he'll be watching Pedro Acosta and thinking, I've got my hands full yet again. Managed to beat him, of course, when they were teammates in Moto2 in Pedro's rookie year. But I mean, it's hard to not think about Pedro standing on the podium, being in the lead group at least, maybe qualifying in the top 6. I mean, if he qualifies in the top 6, Pedro, you do feel that in a sprint especially, and then in a race, he's going to be right there because he can battle with the riders, he can learn where the riders are quick and potentially where they're not, use his strengths. We know from Binder in the lead group last year how much he learned from being in the lead group. Pedro's a rapid learner. I'm getting excited about Pedro this season. I think we all are. I do genuinely believe he's going to be challenging for podiums. Maybe not right from the word go, but after a couple of races, I think he's going to be right up there.
Yeah, I don't blame you for being excited. We'll return to the 31 in a moment, but we can now move across to the 36. And Joan Mir, the 2020 world champion, is waiting to speak to us. Joan Mir was 19th today. Let's get his thoughts with Jack.
Joan, a difficult day, but for perhaps not the reasons we all expected. Not feeling too well. Just run us through what's going on.
Yes, well, the truth is that today I woke up with not the best feeling on my body. I was without energy and with stomach problems. Then we started at 3:30 more or less. We made 2 runs. Then I need to break to stop a bit. I was vomiting on that moment, so we decided to stop, and then I was not honestly feeling well to go back this afternoon. But we had many things to try. I wanted to recheck many things, and we were trying some. We made an important exit trying the electronic side. That was something on the power delivery that I was having doubts, and I wanted to recheck again. And yeah, that is what we could do today, no? In the last minutes, we made a mistake trying to make a time attack, and then I lost the front in turn 11. turn 11, no, turn 13. And yeah, that was the end of the day. We couldn't practice the start, so honestly, it was a day to forget. I wanted to go back to the bed and wake up again to start this day again. But honestly, it is what it is. I wanted another day of testing after this one, but we don't have it.
Considering your physical condition, the lap time you posted 1.1 seconds quicker than what you did here in the race not too long ago. Do you think there was even further that you could have got if you were feeling 100%?
Yes, for sure. I think at 100% we will be able to improve our lap time. For sure, not for 1.5 seconds, but I mean, I think that the half second or even more, I think is something that we could do. Being on the pace during all the day and working on the bike and everything, but we will arrive probably less prepared as I wanted for the first race. I have confidence that the team will put what I couldn't today, and we will get a good package to start the season.
Lastly, Johan, who's the favourite for 2024?
My favourite?
Who is the favourite rider? Who do you think is in number one heading into 2024?
The favourite rider is the world champion Pecco. Pecco at the moment is the favourite one. He showed a very good pace, very good lap times. So I think he's the one he's the favourite.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Detecting a theme here. Get well soon to Joan Mir. I was suffering all the way through that. Someone get Joan Mir a cup of tea and he can get himself to bed and rest up. Clearly not the easiest day at the office for Joan Mir, although credit to him for still putting in the laps when he was feeling far from 100%. Let's complete the Gas Tech 3 story then. And Augusto Fernandez, who none of us like saying it, but if there's one rider who perhaps seems to be in the biggest trouble going to the start line for the first round of the season, is Augusto top of the list?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, we'd have definitely said that after Sepang. He really didn't enjoy Sepang at all, but he did say come in here after the first day, especially yesterday. He said, look, it's definitely not perfect by any means, but definitely riding it in a better way. There's still a long way to go. But potentially Augusto top of that list. I don't think we've seen a proper time attack from Augusto yet, so the timesheets probably aren't telling the full story.
And time attack wasn't his strength last year either.
Well, exactly. This is something that he has said all the way through last year. That is something he needs to work on. So to not have a time attack so far from Augusto, judging from the timesheets, maybe he has done, which would be more of a worry, but I don't think he's properly done one. That is a concern. And I think just looking at what Pedro's doing, he's going to be, over the next couple of weeks, thinking, how can I try and bridge the gap to Pecco, bridge the gap to the factory guys, and try and have a strong start to the season. Look, it's only testing. We can't draw too many conclusions, jump to too many conclusions. But yeah, Augusto definitely starting on the back foot, as we mentioned. And as Simon said, he's a great rider. He's a Moto2 world champion. He's not slow by any means. P4 in Le Mans last year was a fantastic result. Okay, he wasn't quite able to match that throughout the rest of the season. But yeah, an uphill struggle to start with for Augusto. But I think we both believe that he can do a lot better than he's showing in pre-season.
Yeah, he's a class operator and a clever guy, so if anyone can figure it out, Augusto can. And just finally on Tech 3, it must be so difficult for Augusto Fernandez to just focus on his own work when every time he comes into the box, he sees that his stunning rookie teammate has set lap times that he, at the moment, can only dream of. I guess for Augusto Fernandez, that's got to be what he's got to try to do, just to ignore what's going on the other side of the box and the performances that Pedro's putting in.
For sure, and I'm pretty sure that he's probably doing that. It's going to be really difficult. He can't totally ignore what Pedro's doing. He's in the same box. He'll be looking at the timesheets and seeing what Pedro has done. But Augusto's a world champion, as I say. He's an experienced rider. He knows what Pedro Acosta is all about. He's been teammates with him before in Moto2. I think in the Portimao test back in 2022, Pedro came out of the blocks on his first couple of days on a Moto2 bike and topped the timesheet.
So he installed him as title favourite.
Well, exactly. And Augusto was teammates with them. He knows what Pedro's about. So, like I say, Augusto's clever enough to think this is only pre-season testing. He won't be happy, of course, but there's a long way to go. Round one is where it really counts and throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, so perhaps expect the best from Augusto Fernandez as the season unfolds. We've covered 4 of the factories. Let's move on to Aprilia then. And if you look at the testing so far, particularly this test, the Lusail test, it certainly feels like Aprilia are the nearest challengers to Ducati. We've already heard from Aleix Espargaro earlier on in the show, and he seemed reasonably confident that they can certainly give them a race, although he said that their single lap pace was pretty frightening. Given where Aprilia were at the end of the Sepang test, where it certainly felt as if the mood at the camp was dependent on which side of the box you looked at, you'd have to say that they're in pretty good shape. The rider they're all trying to chase, though, that we're going to hear from now before we discuss Aprilia, is the world champion. Pretty much every rider we've spoken to so far has installed this man as the favourite. So let's hear from the rider's favourite for 2024. World champion Pecco Bagnaia with Jack.
Yeah, Pecco, a 150.9, the only 150 that we've ever had around the Lusail International Circuit. I think the question that many people are asking is how?
I cut corner 3.
Thought so.
But the thing that makes me more happy is the feeling that I'm having with the bike. I was missing it, and last year we were sometimes more in trouble to do some things. But this year looks that we had also the luck that the condition was always perfect in Malaysia here. But my feeling with the bike have increased. I think right now it's better in all the areas compared to 23. So we can be very satisfied with the job done.
Over the test, and particularly today, Aprilia kind of creeped closer. Aleix was right up there, and also Raul Fernandez even going very, very well. And even Marquez today has found that spark and put in a strong lap time. What do you think of their performance today?
I think that, Aprilia also yesterday was fast. And Mark did for sure a good step in front in terms of time attack. I don't know the pace because I honestly didn't saw anything. But we will discover all the potential of every riders in the first weekend of race in 2 weeks. But for sure, Aprilia, KTM, all the Ducatis are fast right now. And Yamaha and Honda maybe need more times for sure because the speed is there, but they miss something on traction, I think.
Pecco, we've been asking all the riders who their favourite is ahead of the 2024 season, and for the second year in a row, unsurprisingly, everyone's saying you. So we'll flip it reverse. Who are you going to say to put pressure on?
I think, like I said, all the Ducati rider. We saw in the preseason that Enea and Martin were so fast. Bija also. Betts today did a good step. So all the Ducatis. I think Aprilia have done a step in front compared last year, so they will be there. And KTM always. We have to consider KTM because sometimes they can put some good laps and the pace is always there with the used tires. So I think more or less like last year at the start of the season.
Thank you, Pecco.
Yeah, Pecco Bagnaia is not taking anything for granted at this stage. So with Aprilia and potentially KTM certainly in contention, Pecco Bagnaia is certainly not going to rest on his laurels. And he name-checked Aprilia. We were bound to discuss Aprilia, so let's do that now. As mentioned, from where they were in Sepang, where it certainly seemed as if how competitive they were depended on which side of the box you asked the questions, it certainly appears at this stage as if both sides of that Aprilia box are now much happier.
Yeah, they definitely weren't singing from the same hymn sheet in Sepang. Maverick, a lot less happy with the bike, knew that there was potential there. As Leish said, as soon as he jumped on the new bike, he enjoyed it, felt the potential straight away. Maverick was just struggling a little bit to get going. He didn't feel confident enough to even set a time attack in Sepang. After yesterday, he said he felt a lot more comfortable. Still, obviously not perfect, a few things to work on. But the package straight away has seemed better. Okay, Maverick and Miguel Oliveira haven't got along with it very well compared to Aleix Espargaro, but the fact that Aleix is straight away quick, straight away sort of in the ballpark with the Ducatis on one lap pace and race pace is a sure sign that Aprilia have made a good step forward. Maybe not as close as they'd like to be. No one is compared to the 24 Ducatis especially, but Aprilia are right there, and those sort of time attacks coming in today have shown, especially with Raul Fernandez as well, that Aprilia Yeah, probably at this moment in time closest challenger to Ducati, and especially a late. It'll be interesting to hear. Hopefully, we do get Maverick on the live a little bit later on, because it'll be interesting to hear his overall thoughts from the test.
Yeah, all 4 Aprilias inside the top 12, and as you make the good point, that does include the 2023 Aprilia of Raul Fernandez making up for lost time after missing the Sepang test, or certainly the bulk of it after that crash on the opening morning. Well, we found the perfect person to give us the inside track on just what sort of shape Aprilia are in ahead of the new season. Always happy for a chat. It's Paolo Bonora.
We test many things on all the areas. In particular in the aerodynamic side, we test a lot, and in the vehicle side and electronic side to adjust the package for the new aerodynamics. At the end of these 2 days, we fix a few question marks that we had after the Sepang test. So we define the first vehicle setup for Aleix and for Maverick, and we define in a better way the way of using the new bike, because the new aerodynamics change the riding style, and it's necessary to adapt the riding style on the new setup.
Yeah, just in case you're wondering, I was listening intently to what Paolo Bonora was saying there. I guess hope's pretty high then coming into the new season at this stage for Aprilia, certainly higher than they might have been at the Sepang test. Both the 2024 and 2023 bikes quick, not necessarily as lightning quick as Ducati, but Aleix Espargaro and Maverick Viñales must be going into the season feeling relatively confident, and Maverick Viñales especially much more confident than he was at the end of the Sepang test. We'll discuss that in a moment, because we're going to head over to Lusail now and hear from Marc Marquez. His winter testing program with Gresini is complete. Let's hear his thoughts on it with Jack.
Mark, today was probably the thing that people were waiting for to see from you, that kind of spark and that strong lap time. How confidence-inspiring was that to do that lap time and be up there right at the top?
Yeah, I mean, today I already was on the plan to increase a bit that risk on the bike, and yeah, to increase a bit to see where it was the real limit of the bike. Still, in one lap, still they are a bit faster, but yeah, today I'm happy because we improve our base setup, we improve also the time attack, and then. And I was doing a very long race, the plan was 20 laps, but then with the red flag, okay, we were 18, but I think on lap 12 I crashed because I was trying like different things, and the pace was not bad, but yeah, was a complete preseason, was the last day, and in fact arrived the first crash with the Ducati after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days testing on the 6th day.
Well, not so bad. We've seen you have a couple of technical issues over testing. Any concern with those at all?
No, it was only one technical issue that was they resolved super quick because yesterday we keep riding with one bike, and then today when we tried the fair run, the bike number 1 was a small technical issue, but they fixed very quickly, and yeah, lucky for me today was a stable day, and yeah, it was a day that. As I say, it was time to put some more risk on the bike.
The fun stuff begins next as we go racing in 2024. Realistically in Qatar, what are your aims for there? What would be a good result?
I mean, realistic on Qatar, if right now is the race, I think we can fight for the 5th, 6th position, more or less. But then on the race weekend is different. These guys, especially Pecco, Martin, Bastianini, they know very well the bike. They just go out and they push, and they are super fast from the beginning. So still I'm far from them, but yeah, I try to learn the riding style. I try to learn how they manage the problems, and yeah, step by step, I hope to be closer and closer. If will be enough, I don't know, but at the moment it's still a bit far.
Who do you think is the favourite ahead of the 24 season?
I mean, the favourite is the champion. Even he lit Malaysia test, he lit Qatar test, so he's in a good form. He's pushing a lot, he's riding well, so is the favorite one, and also is the one that need to defend the title. So, but apart of that, Bastianini, Martin, they are super fast. The good thing is that they are riding the same manufacturer as me. So yeah, I can learn from them.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to Jack Gorst asking the questions there. Do you detect perhaps a little bit of kidology there with Marc Marquez when he says he's going to be trying to challenge for 5th or 6th in the first round of the season? And even if he is there at the first round of the season, do we expect him to be there at the end of it?
Yeah, no disrespect to Mark, but I don't quite believe him that he thinks he's going to be challenging for 5th or 6th. I think he'll be a little bit higher up than that. I mean, he makes a good point. Obviously, the 24 Ducatis have made a big step and he's still a little bit away, but good to hear that he's finally felt comfortable enough to push and test the limits. Obviously, that first crash would have given him a little bit of a warning. But I think we all expect Mark, everyone watching at home, us in the studio, everyone around the world will be expecting Mark come Qatar round 1 to be right up there in the podium battle.
Very quickly back to Aprilia then. We've been trying to get this question in. They took 2 victories last season in full-length races, and once again we're being denied by a Gresini Ducati rider, because this time it's Alex Marquez who's waiting to speak to us. Alex Marquez then finished today in 13th, and Jack's waiting to speak to him.
Yeah, we are on live, so here we go then, Alex. Pretty good testing season for you. Looked really, really strong with the GP23, as you were saying. How do you feel going into the racing?
Not bad. I think with quite consistency pre-season, and this is so important. Every day we were there with the top guys. I mean, we are not ready still to win or to be there, but we have a good base to start the season. No objective for the first races. I mean, we need to go race by race, see where we are after 5-6 races, and after that point, put a target, put an objective. But I mean, quite happy about all what I felt on the bike during all the pre-season, and looking forward to start here in Qatar.
Curious to the relationship now. Will it change with your brother Mark going into the racing? Because obviously testing has been about just building and getting better, but now the serious stuff begins. So will it be the Iron Curtain comes down or not?
No, we'll be for sure. If you are a teammate, we'll try to help each other, and like today we did the long simulation together until he crashed. But I mean, it's something that I think, as I said last year, we can make a really strong team, and we can make a lot of results together. So I mean, it will be important to focus in ourselves, but also to have him in the box is a big help.
Who do you think is the favourite ahead of the 24 season?
Difficult to say. I mean, the tests are a little bit. It's difficult to take conclusions. I mean, after 4 or 5 races, we need to take some conclusions. But for me, the favorites at this moment are Pecco and Martin, and they have the pressure for that.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Pecco, Martin are the picks from Alex Marquez. Right, Aprilia fans are on the 10 talks. We're determined to get this question in. 2 wins last year for Aprilia. That's got to be a minimum for them this year, hasn't it? They should be looking for more. And does that package feel like it's got more than a couple of wins in it?
Certainly looks like it could do. I mean, 3 less podiums than they scored last year than in 2022. A disappointing year overall for Aprilia. They won more races with the Leish, but yeah, they just weren't consistent enough. I think that's the main thing for me for Aprilia this year. They've got to be more consistent. Some races last year they were the bike to beat, the riders to beat, and other races they were struggling to get into like the top 6. So I think for me this year, the most important thing for Aprilia is to find a good base that suits most tracks, and then hopefully wins can come a little bit more easy to them.
I guess the big positive from the Aprilia in factory in general coming out of this test be the performance of the Trackhouse duo. Ralph Fernandez, given that he missed Sepang, very competitive on the 2023 bike. Admittedly, at a circuit he was very quick at the Grand Prix last year. And Miguel Oliveira much closer to the front than we'd seen him at any stage today.
Yeah, Ralph Fernandez, for me, has been one of the stars of the Qatar test. To end his Sepang test after 21 laps, I think it was, 3 fractures around his hip area, a really nasty injury that he says he feels lucky to be here. Thankfully for Raul, he was able to train on a bicycle, he said, after about a week. And I think Simon explained it in the midday live a couple of times that his age has helped him out with that injury. He's a little bit more flexible at his younger age. If he was 5-10 years older, it might have been a completely different story. But yeah, Raul really, really impressive on the 2023 RSGP. He's going to get the latest factory spec Aprilia towards the midpoint of the season, we believe. But it's, at this moment in time, Raul doing really, really impressive stuff, given the limited time, of course, he's had on the bike. And the rider on screen, Miguel Oliveira, contrasting emotions, I think, compared to Raul Fernandez, whereas Raul was going to be really, really pleased with how the test has gone, with the time on track he's had, with the injury he's had. Miguel, slightly less so. He was pretty downbeat yesterday. We were both watching his interview with Jack Gorst yesterday. He was very disappointed with how the test has gone. He says he can feel the progress with the bike. He can feel the bike is quicker, but he just needs something a little bit more. Him to get closer to the riding style he needs, and him to bring the bike closer to what he needs. So good to see Miguel climbing the timesheets today. Interesting to hear what he has to say, but again, it's all about getting into race trim and getting ready to race in round 1 in Qatar. So I think we're going to get a bit more conclusions as to what Miguel can do towards sort of rounds 3 and 4.
12th place for Miguel Oliveira today. Raul Fernandez was up in 5th, and it does feel as if we're perhaps close to seeing Raul Fernandez, although Raul Fernandez we hoped and expected to see when he moved up from Moto2, of course, that early year with KTM, with Tech 3 didn't quite pan out for Raul Fernandez. He did finish last season with his career best result at the final race in Valencia, so perhaps Raul Fernandez can kick on. It's going to be an interesting story through the season as well, isn't it? Because Raul Fernandez is going to get the 2024 Aprilia midway through the season. Depending on how competitive he is early on, he might not want to switch from the 23 spec RSGP. And we can complete our summary of the factories by talking to Simon Crafar once again, and starting off by discussing Aprilia. Welcome back to us, Simon. Do your racers' instincts tell you that Aprilia are the likeliest challengers to Ducati?
Yeah, and up until today, I haven't thought so. I really thought it was going to be KTM. And today they've looked really good. It all seems to come together. I just ran back from Aleix Espargaro's debrief, and he said that he's riding the best of his life, and the machine he has, the RSGP 24, is the best motorcycle he's ever ridden. I'll just summarize. It's got a different chassis. It's lighter, not so much different, so a bit more flexible. Swing arm is the same, so saved weight and improved, I think, the flexibility, which helps grip. And they've got the aero thing that really suits Aleix, the Formula One style tail end that obviously puts downforce on the back of it, helps grip, or new wings. They've done a lot of work. They haven't got the engine. And he touched on the engine because we all wanted to know about what's coming, really, because they're the only ones that haven't got the 24 spec engine that they're going to run. And he said that he spoke to Romano Albethiano over winter and was saying, what are we going to get? And Romano said, we've got so much more than we expected from this engine. The numbers are really high. Makes sense. It's won races, and it's very competitive. And I took from that don't expect too much. It's a small step forward again, because when you're that high, it's hard to get more. Look, I think overall, Aprilia are really innovative, especially in the aerodynamic department. They have invented things that other people have copied, at least 3 that I know of, that they've come up with first. And I think they're doing an amazing job. Competitive-wise, they surprised me here today. Raul, amazing job considering he's still in pain. Aleix, super fast, but like you've mentioned before, both one-off laps and long runs looking really good. Just to touch on the other 2 that don't like this new aero as much, I spoke to one of their engineers, and he mentioned that the smaller riders seem more affected by that tail. It's not suiting them as much, and meaning that downforce to the tail, and they've gone back to the 23 for Miguel Oliveira and for Maverick Vinales. He did that first, and so they're trying to get those riders happy, and I think Aprilia overall are doing a really good job.
Simon, looking at the test overall, of course, pre-season testing now done. Who would you say is looking in the strongest position? Who's impressed you the most? And on the flip side of the coin, who do you think's got the most work to do?
Oof, I mean, there's so many riders I could run through. I mean, it's clear the Ducati riders are in a good place, all of them. KTM have some work to do. I really thought that it would be in a better position, their riders, than they are. Aprilia have done slightly better than I expected at this time. But the Japanese, I mentioned, and I should mention again that I see it in that for the last few years, the Italian manufacturers have been a couple of years ahead on aerodynamics and electronics. And the Japanese have made a step with the aerodynamics, clearly. Like they're both, Honda and Yamaha have gone forward in that, really good. And they've improved their engines, improved lots of other little bits, chassis-wise and exhaust and stuff. But I believe they're still a couple of years behind in, it might take months to catch back up, but they are behind in electronics. And I think that's what's holding, a big part of what's holding them back. That's only a gut feeling that I get, from everything I learn and what I see on track and listen from riders' debriefs. So I know you're talking about specific riders, but how I wanted to finish, once you know that, is that this is testing. The track's in amazing condition right now. As David and lots of other team managers pointed out to me, we're going to come back to a different track condition. And everyone's going to have to go, and adjust to suit that track condition, because they're going to have car racing, windy days, sand. It's going to be different. And again, it's going to give people opportunities to make up. It will not be the same as we've just seen in the test. Then the real races come out when the light goes out, and it's different because some are good at going round and round at testing, others race. And so, tune in and see, because it's all going to change again.
Spoken by a real racer. Simon, the next time we speak to you will be during the first on-track session of 2024, and that's an exciting thought to end on. Thanks very much for joining us, and a safe trip home. We'll see you out in Qatar in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.
Thanks to Simon Crafar. So very quickly before we go, because we are out of time, we've asked all the riders for their favourites, so I guess I might as well ask yours. Who's your money on ahead of the new season?
I mean, it's got to be Ducati and Pecco at this moment in time. I'm not going to stray too far away from that. Martin, I think, will be equal favourite with Pecco between many of us, but Ducati on the 2024 package, especially the riders and team to beat at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think Pecco Bagnaia goes in as the favourite, but I think he's going to have a much more of a headache from the beast in the box next to him than he had in 2023. Thank you for your company over the course of this pre-season testing schedule across Sepang and at Lusail. We've still got plenty to come before the season gets underway. Moto2, Moto3 will be testing, so keep an eye on MotoGP.com over the next week or two for coverage of that. Prima Pramac Racing launch next Wednesday, 1 week tomorrow, from the Sakhir circuit in Bahrain ahead of the Formula One season opener. Jack Appleyard and Liam Hodgins will bring you that, and we, of course, will bring you the first Grand Prix of the 2024 season at Lusail in 2.5 weeks' time. What kind of impact will Pedro Costa make? Can Pecco Bagnaia defend the one? Can Marc Marquez return to winning ways? And can the Japanese manufacturers catch up? All those questions will begin to be answered in just over 2 weeks. Do not miss the season opener in Qatar. We'll see you there.